What up, gang? Carolina Jackpot Time coming at you on Tuesday afternoon. Hope you guys and gals are doing well today. Our buddies over at CBS Sports put out their post-spring practice SEC power rankings the other day. I wanted to kind of get into that, go through them, put my own spin on things, and let you kind of decide down in the comment section below where you would rank these teams 1 through 16 power ratings wise after spring practice. Let's get into it. All right, coming in at number 16, they've got Vanderbilt. This is not a shock to anybody. Vanderbilt does bring in a new offensive coordinator this year in Tim Beck, and they also have a new starting quarterback in Diego Pavia. I didn't know until just yesterday when I was reading an article, this guy's not even on campus yet. I'm assuming that he's finishing up classes at New Mexico State where he's transferring from, and then maybe he's graduating. I'm not sure. But at any rate, he's not going to be on campus until August. That's not good. In the old days, I mean, everybody reported in August, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, it's kind of a big deal. He's not going to be there this summer, I guess, to learn the system at all. Wasn't there in the spring, so that remains to be seen. But he doesn't have a very good roster around him, and a lot of the better players that Vanderbilt had transferred out. They lost their best two wide receivers to the portal, so not real good there. Coming in at number 16 is Vandy. I just can't see them being able to climb out of that hole, not this year. At number 15, they've got Mississippi State. Of course, Jeff Lebby comes in as the new head coach there to replace Zach Arnett. That guy didn't even make it a whole season after the Mike Leach stuff went down. Well, he passed away. So Arnett put into a terrible bind. It was the defensive coordinator, immediately promoted to head coach to replace Leach, and I mean, it just didn't work out. His approach didn't work out. Star quarterback Will Rogers, his numbers fell off. He's hit the transfer portal and headed off to Washington. But Lebby comes off the Josh Heupel and the Lane Kiffin coaching trees. He was most recently offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, so he knows what he's doing. He has a transfer quarterback, Blake Shapen, who came from Baylor, who has been productive at times at Baylor. Now, he's had some injury issues there as well. I don't know that this is not just kind of shoehorning Mississippi State into the 15th spot and just saying, oh they're just going to suck. We'll have to see what the lines of scrimmage do and what they do, especially defensively, without the defensive-minded Arnett as the head coach there. Coming at number 14 is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman, of course, started out pretty good at Arkansas back in 2020. I think they had a losing record during that COVID season, but they had actually competed really well after coming off the Chad Morris area where they were just absolutely non-competitive. Looked to be turning a little bit of a corner, and then last season things really fell off. The wheels fell off, actually. They went 4-8. Their only conference win was a win on the road at Florida, which really grinds the hell out of my gears because my Gamecocks couldn't even beat them at home. Talking about Florida. But that was their only conference win. Quarterback K.J. Jefferson sent the transfer portal. He's gone to UCF, of course. Rocket Sanders transferred out. He's gone to the Gamecocks, but once again, he battled a lot of injury issues last year. They bring in new old head coach Bobby Petrino to run the offense, which just seems like a desperation move kind of by Pittman. And I don't know if this guy, if they put him in there as maybe a coach in waiting type thing, but with all the controversy that surrounded him when he left the last time years ago, what with the cheating on his wife, getting a motorcycle wreck, it was just a big mess there with him. And then he had a head coaching gig at Louisville after that, and he wasn't real good. down the stretch. They had some terrible teams there. But Boise State, former Boise State star Taylon Green is going to take over as quarterback there, and he looked impressive in the spring game. And they also bring in Jaquindon Jackson, as a running back from the transfer portal. I don't know. It's tough. Either way you look at it, they've got a tough road game early in the season at Oklahoma State. Just kind of brutal there for Arkansas. Really don't know. I think 14 is probably about where they need to be. They got the Gamecocks in at number 13, which is, I mean, I don't like it, but it is what it is. New starting quarterback Lenore Sellers. He was just announced yesterday. Shane Beamer finally said he's going to be the man at starting quarterback, which I think everybody already knew that. And I don't know if that's so much of how good Lenoris is, or if it's how awful the backup quarterback situation is. But it's really not good. Lenoris looked good in the spring game. Robbie Ashford, the backup, the first number one backup, did not look good to me. The guy can run around a little bit. He can't throw the ball, and he couldn't hit that fence that's 5 feet ahead of me for the ball for save his life. If he goes down, this guy, he's a big-bodied quarterback, so he's going to take off running a lot, and that, kind of leaves you open to, maybe he gets injured. It's very likely, given our recent history with that type of stuff. Says Xavier Leggett, who accounted for over a third of the team's receiving yards last year, is gone. I can't imagine it wasn't more than that. But it says so are the 3 of the 4 leading receivers behind him are also gone. Guess what? The ones behind him really didn't do a whole lot. I mean, they, you had Juice Wells, who was there for a millisecond, and he wouldn't come back from his injury, and we've went through all that before. But that's kind of going to be tough for a quarterback making his first start. He's not going to be able to take off and run with the ball every time he has it in his hands, and they're not going to be able to run the ball. They got to have a passing game. So we're going to see what happens there, but they have picked up 2 in the transfer portal here in the spring, one taller wide receiver that came from Nevada and another kid from Florida State. We'll see how things pan out there. The offensive line has got to be improved, and defensively, they are going to be improved. They look much, much better and crisper in the spring game. They looked better down the stretch last year, and I kind of thought maybe that was just a result of who they were playing. Teams in such as Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Clemson who couldn't move the ball. But it looks like that has bled on over into 2024, because that defense has looked pretty solid in the spring. Dylan Stewart, the edge, 5-star, the class of 2024, will be a true freshman this year, has looked really, really impressive, and there's a good write-up on him over on the Big Spur. Auburn's in at number 12. I was kind of surprised at this. I mean, a lot of people have been hyping Auburn up a little bit as maybe the surprise team. Says it's up to Peyton Thorne to take the next step, because Hugh Freeze has used the portal pretty well, and he's been recruiting pretty well to upgrade the talent around Peyton Thorne. Now it's up to him to make it happen, in other words. Last year, if you'll remember, they lost a couple of really, really close games against Alabama and Georgia at home, where they pushed both those teams to the limit. And those were deep fourth quarter games, especially that Alabama game. So I'm thinking that Auburn may be one of those sleeping giants that just needs a little bit more shaking to be woken up. The end at number 12, I think that might be a little bit low. They've got Florida at number 11. I don't agree with this. I would have them at number 12 and probably have Auburn at number 11. But that's how they've ranked it. Everybody seems to be down on Florida. 11 and 14 under Billy Napier in 2 years. And they're talking this is a make-or-break year for him. With the schedule he's got, it's going to be tough for it to become a make year. However, he still recruited well compared to the recruiting fell off a little bit. He had some decommitments there at the end of the day. He's still recruited pretty well. Graham Mertz is, I think, an undervalued quarterback in the SEC that nobody really talks about. And he does have a couple of targets there, including Eugene Wilson. It's up to a lot of that. See how the young man, Montrell Johnson, responds at running back. What's he going to be able to do there? He's going to be the man now that Trevor Etienne's transferred out and gone to Georgia. And then you got DJ Lagway, who's waiting in the wings. Just look at his chops for that starting quarterback spot. So maybe they bring him in some too to kind of change things up a little bit. I tend to think that maybe Florida is not quite as bad as people make them out to be, but at the same time, maybe they are. I just don't think that Napier's a very good coach. His in-game coaching decisions are head-scratching, and I really don't think he knows what he's doing. So I would have swapped those two just based off that fact. And this is not a prediction of how you're going to do in the season. Just because Florida has a tough schedule doesn't mean we put them at 12 and put Auburn ahead of them. However, I don't really agree with that. Got Texas A&M at number 10, which is also a little bit surprising, given that I thought, some people think that they may be able to make some kind of push for the college football playoff or finish, in the upper third of the SEC. But first-year head coach in Mike Elko, they have a quarterback there in Connor Wegman who has a tremendous upside. But we haven't really been able to see a whole lot from him because he's been injured a lot. And then another young man, Reuben Foster at running back, who showed some flashes. He should be pretty good in 2024. We'll just have to wait and see on Texas A&M. We know they should be solid defensively, as that's what Elko was, the defensive coordinator at A&M prior to his stint at Duke. Little 2-year stint there. So we'll have to wait and see on Texas A&M. It's really quite one of the more mystery teams in the SEC. Number 9, they've got Kentucky. Once again, I don't know here. I would probably. I'm scratching myself a lot in doing this. I'm sorry. It's hot out here. I should have a fan outside. I don't know that I wouldn't have Kentucky and Texas A&M flip-flop. Kentucky's just been one disappointment after another. Kind of ended the season kind of you thought on a high note last year by beating Louisville, who we thought that was a big win at the time, but then Louisville goes out in the the ACC championship game, and they weren't very good. It turns out, but now we've got Brock Vandergrift in at quarterback at Kentucky. Now he's supposed to be the next big thing. Okay, we've had second-year Will Levis, who was supposed to do great a couple years ago, fell flat on his face. Then we had Devin Leary. He was supposed to be great, fell flat on his face. He had some injury issues that he was coming off of. I don't think that he ever totally recovered from. But they do have a couple of wide receivers there in Dane Key, Barryon Brown. I mean, both these guys, especially Key, is a big-bodied wide receiver. Barryon, more the speed guy. So he'll have some weapons to throw it to there. Not quite sure who's going to run the ball for them. We know, defensively, I mean, they should be fairly solid. However, that we didn't really see that to be the case last year. So I don't know that, Kentucky is a number 9. I think they're more like number 10. You flip-flop them in Texas A&M. Got Oklahoma at number 8. Says the primary reasons for concern here is brand new quarterback is sophomore Jackson Arnold, and this is another guy with a huge upside, but they've got to replace all 5 of their offensive linemen. That's tough no matter how you shake it out. But they picked up a couple out of the transfer portal there. They've recruited pretty well. Had a huge upswing last year, right? I mean, they finished 10-3 after finishing 6-6 the season before. We'll have to see on on Oklahoma. That's going to be it's definitely a step up in competition for them. Last year, they were putting a ton of points up on the board in Big 12 conference play. But the SEC is a totally different animal. They're going to be facing much, much better defenses than they were a year ago. Oklahoma in at number 8. LSU, they got them all the way down at number 7. I don't know. Offensively, I mean, should be good once again. Garrett Nussmeier will take over as starting quarterback. Now, he has been a backup there for a while. Was a backup last year to Jaden Daniels, who ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. The knock on LSU is the defense, but they did bring in a new defensive coordinator, Baker from Mizzou, who did a really, really good job last year. Can he rebuild that LSU defense? Their defense was horrible last year. What's he going to be able to do at LSU this year and to elevate that game? He'll have good talent to work with. So we'll see what kind of a coach and developer he is there. If he can get that going in the right direction, 7 might be a little bit too low for LSU, but as it sits right now, I think we're probably about where we need to be. At number 6, they've got Tennessee. And this will make our buddy Sports Talk Jay happy, because there was another power ratings put out by another service the other week that we were talking about, and he was very, very upset that they had Tennessee ranked at number 8 or 9 in that power rating. Yeah, because these mean everything, right? But Nico Iliama-Eva, I'll learn to say his name one day, taking over as quarterback. I mean, had a good showing in the Citrus Bowl, in the 35-0 win over Iowa. However, I mean, it is a little bit too much being made out of that, because last year, yes, Iowa had a top 10 defense, but every team that they played with a legitimate offense, such as a Penn State, such as a Michigan, and such as a Tennessee, I mean, they just blew their doors off, because Iowa just totally unable to flip the field, and couldn't get off the field against teams like that. So I don't know. I don't know if that was more of a case of how good Nico is, or just how awful that Iowa truly is. I mean, it's not very often that you see a team play in a conference championship game such as Iowa did last year and be probably like the 6th best team in the conference. It's really weird. Of course, Dylan Sampson returns at running back, and that wide receiver room has a lot of experience. They don't have those breakout players like the Jalen Hyatt, the Cedric Tillman from a couple of years ago. It's more of names that you probably never heard a whole lot from, but still, there's a lot of experience there. Should be pretty good. Defensively, I think they'll be good up front. They're going to be really good at edge rusher. James Pierce, one of the top players in college football, might be the best defensive end in college football. I still don't really like their secondary a whole lot. But, just based off of, where these other teams fall, I think this is probably, begrudgingly, I will say this is probably about where they belong. And I say begrudgingly because I make no bones about the way I feel about this team and this program. Probably, besides Florida, it's probably my most hated program in the SEC. Just the way that it is, guys. Screw it. They are. Number 5, Mizzou. This is one that, offensively, we know they're going to be really good. You got Brady Cook coming back at quarterback, who emerged as a real star last year when he was, the fan base was calling for him to be benched at the beginning of the season. Luther Burden comes back at wide receiver. This will surely be his last year in Como. He'll be really, really high in the 2025 NFL draft. Got to replace Cody Schrader at running back, however, but they did go to the transfer portal and pick up Marcus Carroll, a guy from Georgia State, who was a really, really good running back, kind of the same type running back as Schrader, kind of not a huge guy, but a low center of gravity, with that quick burst that is, could probably take over a backfield. We know firsthand as he played against the Gamecocks a couple of years ago. So, Drinkwitz has been doing it right there. He's been recruiting really well. Defensively, there's concerns there. You lost 5 guys to the NFL draft, but you have done pretty well in the portal. We'll see with Mizzou. I don't think they were a flash in the pan. I think this team's going to be really good again this year. Do I think they're going to be a 10-win team again? No, I don't. I think they'll take a little bit of a step back for that, just based off of the newcomers that they're bringing in defensively. I don't think they're going to be quite as good. However, I still rate them in the upper half of the SEC and a really good team. Alabama in at number 4, which is, Alabama probably wasn't power rated this low in any kind of SEC poll, which they haven't been doing post-spring practice polls for that many years, but you wouldn't think since probably before Saban came around. Of course, leaves after 17 seasons. In comes Kalen DeBoer, a guy that I think is going to be a really good coach for him. The knock on him is that he doesn't have a huge track record, but what track record he does have is very, very impressive. Got quarterback Jaden Milroe coming back. He'll have a big season. I mean, this guy's probably the best or one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. Extremely talented roster on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I mean, I still don't know if you knock them down this low. I think Alabama could be power rated at number 3 instead of the team that's right ahead of them, which is Ole Miss. Yes, this is everyone's darling Ole Miss. Probably also my most hated team, at least right now. I don't like the way the whole Lane Kiffin, Juice Wells thing. Of course, Juice Wells, who transferred from South Carolina to there. I don't like how that whole thing went down. Their fans are also really chesty on social media. They were also real chesty last year at the Missouri people for some reason, because Missouri was ranked ahead of them at the end of the season. I mean, just cry a damn river about it, But Kiffin is a really good offensive mind. He's done really well in the transfer portal. He's the transfer portal king, or so they call him. And the thing is about Ole Miss that you would think they'll have a really good season is they've got an experienced quarterback back there in Jackson Dart. Defensively, they've done real well in the portal, and they've just absolutely loaded up at wide receiver. It's hard to argue against them being number 3 here, but it's hard to also argue about the inherent talent on that Alabama roster. So you put one at 3, one at 4. I don't think you could go wrong. Texas is at number 2. I don't think this is a huge shock to anyone. Of course, they bring back Quinn Ewers off a team last year that made it to the college football playoff and lost in the first round. Now, can they elevate that game one more notch? I mean, this is a team that will surely make the playoffs this year. Got a ton of blue chip prospects on both sides of the ball. And the thing about them is now they also, we know, have a solid backup quarterback in Arch Manning. We saw what he did in their spring game. Guy threw for over 300 yards. He's going to be really, really good. Sarkisian, also a really good offensive mind. Got some questions about them defensively. So that's why I would say, yeah, they're definitely a number 2 power rating wise, but you're not going to overtake the team that's number 1 in Georgia. I mean, just absolutely stacked with talent on both sides of the football. Should have made the college football playoff last year again, and probably would have won the national championship again if they had made it. However, they had a bad day against Alabama in the SEC championship game and ended up losing that game. I think 27-24 was the final score, and they were left out of the college football playoff. But they bring back Carson Beck, who right now looks like the best quarterback in the conference, and just a really good, consistent defense. And they have just recruited really, really well for the past 6 to 7 seasons, 6 to 7 cycles. Kirby Smart right now just got a raise the other day. What is he now, like the first $13 million guy in college football? It's going to be tough for anybody to knock them out of that number one spot. And I fully would expect them to win the SEC this year. In this case, I would think that the position where they're in the power ratings would be where this team's going to finish at. But Georgia in at number 1 in the power ratings for the 2024 post-spring practice. Guys, let me know down in the comment section below who you would change, flip-flop around here, how you would power rate these teams differently than me. And have a great day. I'll see y'all later. Peace, and I'm out of here. Go Gamecocks. Woo!